There were some changes in devices that could be used in the institutions for restraints, primarily the blanket. It's got a formal name, but I call it the blanket, to use for carrying a juvenile who has been restrained and refuses to walk. It's a lot safer to lay them in the blanket and carry them that way than it is for somebody to be a hold of each leg and somebody a hold of each arm and their head dragging down. And so it's just a much safer way to transport a youngster who is out of control and refuses to settle down. And fortunately, we're not having to use them too often. Isolation is something you have to use from time to time. Nationally, the rules are a kid can be put in isolation for up to 5 days with certain supervision. Our limit is 3 hours that we utilize without having a mental health professional come in and determine that an additional 3 hours is appropriate. We never put a kid into isolation for more than 3 hours without that supervision, unless it's his normal bedtime. And if it's their normal bedtime, then you can put them to bed because they're all in isolation effectively when they go to bed. Pepper spray had been in effect, I think, for a year, and it might have been 2 years. The use of pepper spray, I think, is down from what it was when I arrived. It's one of those things that you do not want to use unless you have to use it, but there are times when it is safer to use it than to have physical combat. If you're in one of the units where you've got metal tables and metal benches and everything's all nailed down, and a young man is out of control, and it's obvious, and he's beating on people, then he's going to have to be restrained. And with all of those objects around for people to fall against, if you do a physical restraint, then under those circumstances it becomes safer to use the chemical spray. But our policy is you don't use it unless you absolutely have to. And in fact, the uses are down. Most of these kids, people just say, lock them up and throw away the key. But if most people's kids grew up in the circumstance that most of these kids grew up in, I'd have them. Most of them never had a chance. So, some of them are too far gone to salvage, but we can salvage a lot of them. So.